Your ascendant sign or rising sign. So I have another video that you should watch. Why the hell is the rising sign so important? So I'll put the link below. I have a unique take on the rising sign. Some people might think I don't like rising signs. They are the mask you wear. They are the defense mechanism you have to the world. But they are also, interestingly enough, the point at which you enter the earth. This becomes the environment that you're born into. Is it the chicken or the egg? Were you born into this environment and then that became your personality because it was what surrounded you? Or were you that way in a past life and then you come into that particular point in time to this earth because that's what you are? Well, I think it's both. We're born into an environment where this projection of who we wish we were is seen as positive. Our environment, our parents, our family, our culture, our church group, whatever, they want us to be this. They might even think that this is who we are. If your rising sign is the opposite sign of your sun sign, I'm sorry. Because you probably feel like your parents don't really know who you are. You might be 35 years old and they still have no idea who you are. That's kind of painful. If you have the same rising sign as your sun sign, that's awesome. There's an authenticity that comes across with you. You are so used to being true to who you are. That is great. If your rising sign is square to your sun, this is also an uncomfortable position where you probably feel like it's really hard to step into your sun sign. You just don't feel exactly comfortable being your true self. When we're kids, we usually look a lot like our rising sign. As we get older, we start to look more like our sun sign or our moon sign, especially if we start becoming that. You are what you eat. What you are inside starts representing itself to your exterior self. It's important to know what your rising sign is because you might be carrying a bunch of weight from the past that we can then release in this video. Be able to embrace more of who you truly are. The rising sign, it's the movie we're watching of what we think the world is because the environment we were born into said, hey, Cancer ascendant, you are a Cancer. You should act like a Cancer. We're going to reward you for being a Cancer. And the whole world we put around you is also going to see you as a Cancer. So in a way, our rising sign is less about who we really are, and it's more about what we see and project the world as. We act a certain way because this is our strongest foot forward in the world around us. Your ascendant is how you go about getting things. When you're little especially, let's say you're a Cancer ascendant. Your dad is watching TV and you want to watch your movie. And you go in there and you give the most cute, adorable, innocent little Cancer big eyes. And of course, nobody can resist. Or you're an Aries ascendant. And so you just go in there and you just change the channel. Take that. An ascendant is also how you survive elementary school and your siblings. When we become nervous, when we become uncomfortable, when we feel like we can't be ourselves, when we feel like somebody wants a fake presentation of who we really are, in walks the rising sign. Ta-da! Very useful to have. But to be happier in life and to be more of who you really are, being authentic is what it's all about. So become more like your sun sign, become more like your north node, become more like your moon sign. And don't let anybody force you into, you need to act a certain way to please them, Libra. Now, am I recommending to just lose all the traits of your rising sign and pretend like it doesn't exist? Treat it as something negative? No, of course not. A defense mechanism in nature is very useful. There are going to be situations where your rising sign is going to be very good for you to have. Like in a job interview, when someone's trying to treat you poorly, you can use your rising sign as a protection mechanism. All right, so without further ado, your ascendant. Gemini ascendant. In a positive sense, a Gemini ascendant, their parents really encourage their education, encourage their vocabulary, and encourage their communication. And maybe they thought that you were going to be a great speaker, or they thought you were going to be a great comedian. Maybe they wanted you to be a great writer. Something related to your intellect and your verbal ability. But in a negative sense, if you have a lot of emotion that you need to express, but your parents are always encouraging to use your intellect, then you can feel like they just don't know who you are. A Gemini ascendant can sometimes feel like their parents weren't emotionally connected to them. They were just like encouraged to use their brain. They didn't get enough cuddles and love and all those kind of affection-related things. Gemini ascendants are very charming, very playful in conversation. They'll have a turn of phrase. They'll think through everything before a party of what they're going to say, and they'll usually have it all mapped out in their head. They come off as very intelligent or charismatic or funny. Sometimes a Gemini ascendant is just not very practical. They are more drawn to like the shiny little objects and trying to charm and entertain everybody, being that politician. Maybe they're spending so much time trying to get everyone to like them that they're not spending as much time on planning out their own life and what they really need and what they really want. When a Gemini ascendant gets drunk, there's just no stopping the chatter. And some, if they don't know how to be emotionally vulnerable, they're going to talk more about things that they know, like factoids and stuff like that. If somebody is more emotionally available, then they might spend more time trying to say something funny. Everyone around them is just an audience to charm. They can often be very restless. Like at a party, they might want to jump from scene to scene and get bored in an environment and want to move on to the next thing. Keeping their attention can be kind of difficult. I also think that Gemini ascendants sometimes are afraid for people to really see their more practical side or their more sensitive side, and so they kind of put out those factoids to throw you off the scent. Clever. A Gemini ascendant is probably encouraged with things like their education, but they might not have been as encouraged with their passions. The environment that they were born into might have been very tumultuous. Just try not to be emotionally attached to anything. So they have that detachment and they get bored with things and move on. So maybe they had a lot of moving around, or their parents were just too busy, or they just felt like there was really no emotional foundation in their life. But in the positive sense, they might have been raised by very intelligent people who expected the same from them. Gemini ascendants feel like they always get ahead in life when they impress people with what they know. A Gemini ascendant often feels like they were alone. It's the orphan ascendant. It's not the greatest one to have, sorry guys, because you feel detached. Childhood should not be a feeling of detachment. That's like the last thing it should be. So yes, this is a difficult one to have, and I think usually a Gemini ascendant's goal in life is to finally get to the place where they feel a true sense of belonging and closeness to people that they love. They want to be part of the group. They don't want to be isolated. They don't want to be floating out in space by themselves. You know, their parents were off at work and then they were just left home. Because of this also, a Gemini ascendant can have a really difficult time talking about their feelings. Like they know how to talk about the weather, they know how to talk about the news and debate, but talking about their emotions and how they feel is really difficult for them. And it's not so much about trust, but they just don't even know how to take that emotion and translate it into words, which is kind of funny since they are so verbal. Gemini ascendants are usually very fun to be around. They always know how to liven up things. They're very interesting people with a lot to say. Hope you guys like my take on Gemini ascendant. Come back for Cancer ascendant.